G'day, I'm Rob.
And I'm Dave.
And you're listening to the Doctor Who show's Hot Take on The Legend of Ruby Sunday. Hello, Dave. I believe you're in my hometown.
I am in your hometown. I'm in the Emerald City. I'm in a hotel room, not in my usual setup. Hopefully this all sounds the same, but if it doesn't, please forgive us. I'm not at home.
No problem. And of course, I think, Dave, although these hot takes have been going for weeks and weeks now, people have been listening for weeks and weeks, this one I think we should probably put a spoiler warning at the start of.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to dive in with a number of different things. This episode was all about revelations and twists and all the rest of it. So yes, no, more than any, I think, of this season, spoiler warning.
Right. Into our words of the week. We like to start with those. Dave, what is your word of the week?
My word of the week, Rob, is basil.
Basil? Okay, that could go in a few directions. My word of the week is football.
Football? I don't know what direction that could go in. Okay. Oh, no, I think I have got it. I think I've got it.
Interesting. Whereas yours, I've got about 3 or 4 in my head already.
Okay. Oh, well, we'll find out at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I've got faulty, I've got brush, Anyway, let's not get into that now. Dave, an overarching thought on this episode to begin.
This is a very difficult episode to assess because I think this is the most part one-y part one that ever part one in the history of New Who. And a lot is going to depend on what sort of happens in there. All of that said, was I enjoying it as I watched it? Absolutely. Did it keep me, for the most part, wondering what the revelations were going to be and what the twists would be? Yes, it did. So I think, whilst it was very part one-y, and that was a little bit to its detriment, it was good, it was enjoyable, a few faults, but I think this can only really be appreciated when you watch it back-to-back with part 2.
I think you may have already picked my word of the week there. My thoughts on this. Yes, pretty straightforward. We just got on with things and told a straightforward Doctor Who adventure for the broad audience. I was here for it. And, I'm kind of happy with this one.
Well, that's good.
Yes. Where do you want to begin the conversation?
I want to quickly say I hated the Doctor's costume.
Oh, really?
It just didn't work for me at all. And particularly coming off the wonderful costume he had in Rogue last week, I just thought, no, that was terrible. So I just need to get that out of the way. Didn't like the costume.
What if he's just been to Grease the Musical or something?
Well, then he can get changed.
Yeah, I don't know why he was in this outfit particularly. Oh, look, we know he gets on the moped with Bonnie Langford in the next episode, so maybe it's all leading up to that. Like, they've worked backwards. Oh, he's got to be on a moped at some stage, so let's put him in a leather jacket and jeans. Maybe that's why he's in it.
Maybe that's why. It's a minor point. I'm sure there are bigger things we should be talking about, Rob.
There is. Look, let's talk about Susan, because I've got to say, this whole, it's Susan. Oh, no, it's a trap. Was really ambiguous, and I think that's probably what you want, but it seemed to be done in a really clunky way. We seemed to go down the Susan route a couple of times, like, this almost definitely is Susan, and then we would sort of pivot and be like, oh no, it's a trap. And I get what they were trying to do, but it felt really clunky to me. Did it feel clunky to you?
Clunky probably isn't quite the right word, but there was a little bit of... You could see the manipulation of the writers as we were going through it. Again, we don't quite know what's going to happen next week and whether there will be more of a payoff or some sort of a payoff to the Susan stuff. Maybe it's that Susan is involved in some way. Maybe it's that they get to the end and... My prediction might be that there's a sort of a whole, the thing that's most important is family. Doctor, what about your family? You have a granddaughter. Oh, that's right. And he goes and visits Susan in the 21st century or something. We get a Carol Ann Ford cameo. Maybe that's just me being very wishful, but, the amount of depth that they went into with the whole Susan character back in the Devil's Court episode here, where we, again, as you said, we had long explanations about what was going on and why he can't visit her and all the rest of it. That seems to me to be a lot for just misdirection. But yes, to answer your question, when they sort of did it might not be Susan, it's a trap. Oh, it's 96% probably a trap. It was like, yeah, okay, I get it. Right.
But you know what? If the Devil's Chord was meant to be played later in the season, as we picked out those clues, and the Geek's Handbag on the Big Blue Box podcast did as well, could it possibly be because this was leading into these last couple of episodes, and so it made perfect sense to suddenly start talking about Susan, but because they yanked it back to the start of the series, we now have this random Susan reference in episode 2 that sort of goes nowhere? Is that why that happened, maybe?
Yeah, look, that is definitely very possible. Likewise, what's the word? Harbinger?
Harbinger.
Harbinger, thank you. Don't know why I couldn't say that one. Maybe the Harbinger, as well would make a little bit more sense if it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, not 6 weeks ago.
Exactly. When H. Harbinger came up, I thought, yeah, I really am really convinced now that Devil's Chord was meant to be later in the season. I'm super convinced.
Yeah, because it is sort of quite a throwback. I mean, maybe not, but yes. So maybe that, I think, is sort of over-egged things a little bit.
Talking about Susan did give us that nice scene with Kate and the doctor, with Kate just throwing out a few lines like, oh, my dad used to kick back and tell me stories about the doctor and all that. That's always a really nice thing to have. When you're thinking of Nick Courtney, maybe telling these stories about the Pert and getting around with the Pert. I really enjoyed that. And the look on Shooty's face, I think, sold that scene too. I
actually didn't get a lot out of that scene. I felt like we've seen it just a few too many times. And okay. I was just sort of like, yes, we get it. The Brigadier was her dad. And it does sort of really, I think, make Kate Lethbridge-Stewart feel like, the second place, the spare. And I do wonder how much that really matters to the young crowd that RTD says that he's trying to get in, and indeed to new viewers. And if I could just sort of go down a side street for a moment, my work bestie has, for reasons I won't go into, started watching Doctor Who on Disney Plus.
Right.
And he's like, oh, you're a fan of Doctor Who, aren't you? Yeah, I'm quite a big fan, yes. And he sort of asked me a couple of questions about stuff, and he's like, this makes no sense. And he's trying to get me to explain regeneration. He's like, so they're a different actor and they look different and a different personality, but it's the same person. How does that work? There was sort of quite some skepticism there. But I sent him a clip of William Hartnell from An Unearthly Child and said, this is my favourite Doctor. This is the first time you see the TARDIS, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, oh, that's the guy that they did the flashback to. Oh, what's that about? And I was like, well, the Celestial Toymaker was in the episode in 1966, The Celestial Toymaker. And he's like, oh, is that why they did that flashback? Oh, okay, that makes more sense now.
Right, wow.
So it was just sort of, interesting. And this is the friend I've spoken about before, who's, a big fan of comics and Batman and all the rest of it. Yes. So he gets this stuff. But it was just interesting that we all go, oh, that was a flashback to Hartnell on the 1966 story, The Celestial Toymaker. For a new version, just go, well, that was a black and white flashback to what?
Right, and so this scene talking about the Brigadier would be similar, I guess, for him, maybe.
Yeah, and that's why I sort of worry, like, oh, this I went around with your dad, and it was like, well, what? Why? Why do I care? Who is your dad? What? Is this a clue?
Yeah, okay.
Maybe, they think, oh, maybe her dad's a devil or something as well, like, who knows?
While we're still on Unit, I've just got to talk about this really briefly. Rose's line about investigating shoplifting in Catford. I get that that's a funny line, but in universe, is Unit really investigating shoplifting in Catford, or do they feel Rose has been lumbered on them perhaps and she's a bit hopeless, so they've given her menial jobs like that?
Yes, I wasn't quite sure how to take that, and I also...
Me either.
I was like, what? Huh? Unit shop? Okay. Yes, I had the same reaction.
Yeah, could take it either way. Dave, I've been talking a lot. What are some of your points you want to rip into?
I did have a Babylon 5 moment watching this, I have to say, when the Miss Flood character said there's a storm coming, and all I heard in my mind was Elric doing the I see a storm coming, a black and terrible storm.
And then there was one.
Which
the clouds rolled in across London.
That didn't seem to be anything, though. I sort of thought, there are clouds rolling. This is going to be a sort of an ID4 moment. The clouds roll in and something rolls in, and then it's like, no, there's just a cloud there because she said there was, and now it's sunny outside and nobody's noticed that there's a storm, and it didn't actually mean anything. It was a bizarre moment in hindsight.
Yeah, and we sort of just left those characters behind.
Yes. Yes. I mean, presumably there's more to it than that.
Oh, of course. But yeah, that was a strange moment. Of course, it prefaced Susan's freakout, where I guess, and we're getting into spoilers, people, where Sutek starts to come through. Was that freakout being beamed to the world, or did someone yank the transmission? I'm sitting there the whole time thinking, surely we're going to cut in RTD fashion to people watching TV in suburbia, or people looking up, looking at the news or something, and they'll be reacting like, oh my God, Susan is freaking out. But we never got that scene, so I don't know whether she was just there in the studio without the studio audience just like going crazy and Sutek possessing her, or whether that was beamed out to the world. I as I sit here right now, I don't know. And I don't know whether it would have paid off better if we did know it was going to the world or what.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that. It did occur to me in the moment that, hang on, is this being broadcast? What are people going to make of this? But yes, it wasn't quite clear whether it was the broadcast or whether they pulled the plug or whatever. And you're right, the lack of reaction shots is very not RTD.
Yeah, because I thought, if people are reacting, maybe can Sutek then possess people who are watching the transmission, or at least scare them into a mass panic, or what's the payoff of it being beamed out into the world? Or again, has the transmission been yanked and it's not being beamed out into the world, and this is all playing out just in a studio? I found that really lacking. I thought we could have had that a bit better explained, and I think it would have added to the storyline somehow.
Yeah, I actually hope that they don't go down that path of using the TV transmission or using Susan Twist's technology or anything like that, because Sutek is defined, certainly in my mind, as this ancient, powerful god. And the idea that he's so powerful and can do all the things that we saw him do and the Doctor talked about in the Pyramids of Mars, the idea that, but he can be helped with a bit of a television transmission, would just be so lame. Just this, I'm Sutek, I'm all powerful, but I need a I need a TV to help me. Like, that would be so lame. I hope that that's not the case.
I agree with you, but it makes you then wonder why the TV transmission is involved at all, because it could just as easily be that Susan's up in her tower and the Doctor goes over to visit, and this whole conversation plays out, and no one needs to see it. It doesn't need to be broadcast to the world. So why is that included there? I guess that's why I'm getting hung up on the fact there's no reaction shots, and I do have no idea whether it was even beamed out there to the world, because it seemed to be important that she was going to be doing this on TV to the world. Not even just to the UK, but to the world. That's a plot point, and yet I don't know how it worked or how it was resolved, or if it was resolved.
Yeah, I think RTD does these things in two ways. He either does them incredibly intimately, one person in a room with another person, and they're slowly explaining that actually I am, that sort of Dr. Yana master reveal, that very sort of quiet thing. Or he does that, I'm doing a big speech, and that's going to turn into, and the big speech is the rising dramatic moment that ends with the big reveal. And I think that the only reason I can see at the moment that Susan Twist was giving a big speech to the world is that he needed a big speech to bring up the tension, and it's all happening at 3:00, and she's giving a big speech and she's giving it to the world, and everything gets bigger and bigger, and we know that this is the finale coming, what's going to happen, and Sutek arrives. I think potentially doesn't exist for any more reason than this is just a cool idea.
That's really interesting. Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll see next week as to whether it was meaningful or not.
And sorry, I've just got to say, I don't know how many people listening to this have watched season 2 of Alex Rider, but this did have very season 2 Alex Rider vibes. So I don't know if that's a coincidence or not.
I have no idea what that is, so not me.
The whole tech giant giving a speech, global launch of product, etc., etc. I just thought it was very Alex Rider. Yeah. If you get that, please let us know. It could be just me.
Now that the cat's out of the bag, Dave, Sutek, a lot of people, well, I say a lot, I saw numerous people on X during the past week guess that Sutek might be the big bad who was coming. People also guessed a number of other things as well, but there were quite a few plumping for Sutek. Did you see any of that in the past week?
Yeah, I was going to say, whilst it wasn't a huge number, it was certainly more than enough that someone like me, who does not go out there seeking spoilers and who doesn't engage in speculative or what they're like conversations. You know, Rob, I'm very much just like, you know, what's out in a week? Let's just find out. So I don't go looking for that in any way, shape or form. But there was certainly enough mentions of Sutekh out there that I saw it. And usually sort of like, well, hey, it's a big, mysterious, powerful god. You know, who was a big, mysterious, powerful god? Sutekh. And so, you know, very reasonable deductions. But yes, mixed up with a whole lot of other things. I wasn't sort of thinking about that when I started watching the episode. I wasn't like, right, let's see if Sutekh's in this. But when they referred to that great big special effect as the Beast, I thought, I wonder if he's going to bring back the Beast from the Satan pit. That would be a deep cut. That would be a bit weird. Oh, hang on, the Beast, played by Gabriel Wolfe. Gabriel Wolfe played Sutekh. Oh, okay. So maybe there was something in that.
My spidey senses went off when they were in the room with the time window. Not so much when what I assume was to be sand was swirling around the TARDIS, but when the Colonel died, it looked like he had turned to sand or was covered in sand. And I thought, oh, that's a very specific effect. Sand is a very Sutekh-y kind of thing. That Sutekh-y thing might be coming real. That's where my spidey sense went off.
Yeah, that was definitely they're going for an ancient Egypt sort of vibe here. Okay, maybe this is the direction we're going in. So, yes, I was starting to piece it together and go, maybe this is going to happen, yes.
Just sticking on Sutekh for a moment, Dave, now that we're onto it, I want to say after the reveal, though, I was sitting there like, okay, cool, it's Sutekh. You know, oh, doesn't the head look good? Okay, I guess some of the budget went on that. But now what are you going to do with it, RTD? So my sense is probably around the world there might be reaction videos to people go, oh my God, it's Sutekh, Jesus Christ, ah! But I was kind of like, yeah, okay, cool, that was one of the ones we sort of guessed it could be. Here he is. What are you gonna do? That's where I want to go now. That's what I want to know. I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm old now, but I wasn't like blown away or crying tears of joy or, you know. How did you take it when you actually knew it was Sutekh for sure?
Yeah, much the same as you, Rob. I wasn't sitting there going, well, my mind's blown. I was going, okay, that's kind of cool. I hope they've got Gabriel Wolfe back to do the voice. Oh, yeah, okay, that's Gabriel Wolfe. Yep, okay. Very pleased that they've done that. That's a nice setup. If you want to have a really big, powerful, big bad, you know, that is a really obvious way to do it. So I was pleased. I wasn't blown away. And look, you're right. There are two types of people who just watched that episode. There are the people who have seen the Pyramids of Mars and people who haven't. And I think people who've seen Pyramids of Mars will either go, okay, that's very cool, or you're right, I look forward, actually I don't look forward to, I'm probably not going to watch them, but there will be reaction videos of, oh my God, it's Sutekh! I just, no, I'm not going to watch those. But we all know they'll exist. There will also be a whole lot of people who either go, well, what's a Sutekh? Or that just go, look, I don't know what Sutekh is. I don't know that they're a past villain, but they're just going to go, this seems like a really powerful thing, and they've got a cool name, Sutekh. Right, let's see where this goes. I think that the writing was sufficient that if you didn't know who Sutekh was, you'd still get, this is the big bad of the season that we're revealing here.
Yeah, agree.
Rob, can we go back to the time window that you mentioned?
Yes, please.
What the hell was that about? I don't think I really knew, and I don't think the script really knew exactly what this thing did. Because we went from, okay, let's go get this VHS and clean it up and do the whole TV, enhance that section of the frame magic tech that TV shows always have, and they could find Ruby's thing, to suddenly like, oh, we've got this time window and it can show us glimpses back in time, kind of like the time-space visualizer in The Chase. And then it's sort of like, oh, but if we give it the VHS, that can help it to see the past. And it wasn't... I think there were times when it was treating it like a sort of a holodeck. Oh, we've given it this VHS and now it's projecting what's on the VHS, but in 3D. And then there was, oh, but this is actually what happened back then. And I kind of... And again, maybe it's my brain overthinking things, but I kind of didn't think those various different things held together quite the same. And that whole scene was just a lot of, well, things are happening because things are happening, and the tech does this at this moment because the tech needs to do this at this moment, but da-da-da-da. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. I went with it. I mean, yes, They've built a room that can visualize scenes from the past, but it's pretty crap. I mean, the Doctor critiques the tech as being pretty crap. Kate Lethbridge-Stewart says, was it the signing of the Declaration of Independence and all they could make out that the quill was white? So it's tech that doesn't work very well. I think what the doctor was suggesting is that memory can sort of make the signal to the past stronger. I assume you could plug a person into it and, their memories could feed the picture, but they also took memory from the videotape as well as a sort of form of memory. It's a recording of what happened. So I went with it. It's a slightly magical thing, but a lot this season has been a bit magical and not as sci-fi. But hey, I guess, it goes back to that famous sci-fi quote that, the most advanced technology can look like magic to people, so who knows. But I went with it, Dave.
Yeah, look, thank you. That's helpful. I'm just, going to go Red Dwarf and go, it's a magic window. Why did you just say so?
Well, look, if they can develop photographs in Red Dwarf and then step inside those photographs, what was that, time slides?
Time slides, yes. And I was thinking of Stasis Leak as well, yes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's one of my favourite episodes of Red Dwarf, and I think just the thought that you could step into a photo is just so magical. If I can just go down that Red Dwarf path for a moment, I've always liked that story.
It's a very cool episode, yes.
Dave, shall we go to the sports desk?
Yeah, Rob, everything else that I had to talk about, we've kind of said, and honestly, the rest of it really needs part two to really be a proper coherent thought. So, yeah, let's go.
Here we are at the Sports Desk where, for our new listeners, we do our Play of the Week, Foul of the Week and Player of the Week. Dave, do you want to kick us off with your Play of the Week?
My Play of the Week. So I'm going to be very fanboyish here. I am going to say my Play of the Week was I Bring Sutek's Gift of Death. Because I just thought, look, that was the moment. The whole It's Sutek didn't really get my fan gene going. It was all, oh, yeah, that's cool. But when he did do the I Bring Sutek's Gift of Death, I even as he said I was like, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. They're going to do the line. And it was very cool to hear that. So yes, I'll admit my fanboy gene went off, and that was a Play of the Week for me.
Great. My Play of the Week, and it's funny given we've just discussed it, was actually the time windows, which I think was an interesting conceit and I think a cool technique that could be used in other stories, and I think it was done in a really, really good way. There were a few scenes where it looked like Shooty and Millie were against a very flat video backdrop, but there are other times where it seemed like they were actually in a slightly grainy, slightly old VHS tape, and I thought that's a really cool effect. I really like the look of that. So both in terms of the conceit and how we could use that in a story, and also the way it looked, I got to go with the time windows.
Fair enough.
Dave, I'll continue on with Foul of the Week, and I've held my peace on this one so far. It's Kate's reaction after the Colonel dies, and I get the feeling the director said to her there, to Gemma Redgrave, Gemma, you're sad. You hate the Doctor for causing this. You're angry. You're scared. And, maybe a few other things. And Gemma Redgrave has tried to do all of this simultaneously. And it came out really weirdly, I thought. As a professional doing her job, I think the anger at the Doctor is particularly misplaced. I mean, she's worked with the Doctor so many times. She knows these things are possible. She would have seen it a million times, even without the Doctor around, deaths within unit. To throw a stink eye at the Doctor... It's like, why are you doing that? And it seems even weirder when we see her in the next scene chatting to the Doctor while he's over at the Triad building and they're communicating through those earpieces. And she's like, yeah, hi, so, what's going down? This is what's happening over here. And her demeanour is completely different. And so we go from this really weirdly played moment to just back to normal again. I found that so odd. It's my Foul of the Week.
Yeah, I totally understand this, and it's a shame because back when we did 68 metres, I said that Kate Lethbridge-Stewart actually got my...
I just realised what you said then.
Thank you. Kate Lethbridge-Stewart actually got my Player of the Week that week because I thought she did a really unusually good performance for her. Sadly, we are back to her usual performances, and there were moments when she's shouting commands and stuff. I've just gone, I don't buy you at all.
Not at all. And Dave, your Foul of the Week?
My fail of the week was almost your play of the week. It was almost the time window. But I didn't go there. In fact, my fail of the week is only about 40 seconds before my play of the week, because my fail of the week is the line, "It was the wrong anagram." And I've just gone, oh, that is so lame. It's a lame line. It's lame that we've been playing these games. And the idea that Sutek, ancient god from Festa Osiris, would be like, I know, I'll do a fun anagram to let the people know I'm coming. I just thought that is such a stupid concept. And it was in amongst a really good climax, and I was enjoying it. There were lots of like really cool moments, and that looks good, and I love that line. That was just a moment of, oh, for goodness sake, Sutek does not do anagrams.
It wasn't even a proper anagram.
No, it was very much like RTD going, look how clever I am. And and the sad part is I did quite like the stuff earlier in the episode where they did the whole S Triad, that's an anagram of TARDIS, and it was like, yeah, we all got that. I thought that's actually, quite fun, because every fan out there's been like, oh, it could be an anagram of TARDIS, and everyone's like, yeah, that's pretty obvious. So, like, that was quite clever, but Sutek using anagrams, Sutek, okay, no, sorry, lame, foul.
Yeah, and look, that TARDIS anagram thing, again, the speculation online was, oh, Susan has TARDIS knowledge, TARDIS technology in her head. Is she flogging that off as like a tech billionaire type thing? That could have been where it was going. People were speculating on that. Yes,
none of which was sort of talking about how she would be in the 21st century, or sorry, this early in the 21st century. So that was very weird. But that was my foul.
Alrighty. Player of the week, Dave, I'm giving it to Shooty. Aside from the gimme the lovin' moment, which, to be fair, is just aimed at Rose, which is something we hadn't seen in trailers before. We had the sense that he just dived out into unit and was saying, gimme the lovin' to everyone at unit. But it was aimed at Rose, so it's probably appropriate to address Rose that way, so I can let that pass. There's no other moments from him in this episode where I'm not dialed into him being 100% the Doctor, and that's the honest truth. I really liked his performance in this. I believed in him as the Doctor. Shooty for me.
I'm glad you said that, Rob. I had some good Shooty moments. I do agree with you that when I saw where that give me the loving moment was aired, I've sort of gone, look, I still don't love it, but okay, that's a much better being directed at Rose than it was at the whole room. So I'm with you on that. I had that same thought. There were moments, though, where I think Shooty was a bit too big for my liking. The whole sort of punching the wall stuff didn't really work for me. So I can't give him my player, although he was good in a lot of it. I'm giving my player of the week to Bonnie Langford. When she turned up, I just thought that's really good. When I realised that she was doing tech stuff and being undercover and all the rest of it, I thought, this is it. This is how Mel should have been used. I think Bonnie plays it really, really well. And I just loved having her on screen, and I thought she was really good. So happy to give Bonnie my player of the week.
I'm glad you said that, because we hadn't mentioned Bonnie. I mean, we have to rattle through these hot takes in rapid order. We hadn't mentioned her, and yeah, I completely agree with you. It's an excellent use of Mel. It plays into all her capabilities historically. They're not even been shoehorned in the 21st century. That's what Mel has always been.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, Dave, before we do our wrap-ups, let's get into our words of the week. Your word was?
Basil.
Basil, that's right. Is it a brush? Is it a faulty?
It's none of those. I am referencing here Austin Powers and the character of Basil Exposition. Whilst this was very entertaining exposition, I think that it's hard to go past the fact that this was an entire episode of exposition. There was a lot of people standing around explaining the plot to each other, a lot of the Doctor explaining who Susan was, or let's talk about my dad, or let's explain who Susan is, or the continuing lists of this is where I saw Susan Twist character for the number of things. There was lots and lots of exposition to catch up people who haven't seen every episode this season, to catch up people who haven't seen past Doctor stories. And I think that the one big fault of the episode for me is that clearly they had to get to sort of 40-something minutes, and Sutek had to arrive at that point to be the end of episode cliffhanger. I think that if this was just a 90, 100-minute long episode, which in the end it will be when we see part 2, you would have moved all of that stuff probably to be about half an hour in and cut about 15 minutes of what there was. And it just felt there was lots of exposition dragged out to get us to 40-something minutes, because that's when Sutek has to arrive, and that was the one big weakness of the episode for me.
Yeah, Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways certainly did it better for me in the reveal of the Bad Wolf, that's for sure. And I'll just ask the quick question without notice. Do you think this was an episode worthy of going into cinemas? Obviously with its second part next week. Did that first half feel like it was cinema worthy?
Probably not. I think the cinema stuff will rest on the big climatic battle of the gods, whatever they're going to do next week. Again, if this was the first act of a 3-act movie, I would say this was really, really good, but that would make it about half an hour, not 40-something minutes.
Yeah.
It is not an episode that I think remotely is going to stand on its own. It purely exists to be the first half of a greater thing, which leads me, I suspect, to your word of the week, Rob.
Thank you, Dave. My word of the week was football, because football is a game of two halves. Was that it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, football is a game of two halves. We've got to see the second half play out before we can say how this match has gone overall. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct.
All right then, to wrap up, I can already sense people getting carried away with this ending. They're going to be very excited that Sutek's back. Sutek comes from a fantastic classic era episode of Doctor Who. Sutek is a beloved character for a lot of people, so I get all of that. But as we've just said, not a lot happened in the ep, relatively speaking. It's all been set up. So I'm happy to throw an 8 out of 10 at this, but no more, and certainly I'm not jumping out of my seat with joy. There's a lot to come, and it's all going to hinge on that, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to give the episode a B. It was good. I enjoyed it. I was genuinely trying to work out where the twists were going, and I cared about the ending. So it ticked all the boxes, but it was basically 40-something minutes of exposition. And, you know, I can't give it more than a B for that.
Alrighty. Well, join us next week, folks, for the final episode of this season of Doctor Who. We'll do the hot take on Saturday. We're going to push out a List Makers on the Sunday. But until then, I've been Rob.
And I've been Dave.
We'll catch you then on the Doctor Who show. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.